Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Although I could also pass for like a terrorist.
Big D,
Yeah.
you ended your Twitch right as I made an account so I could start commentating.
Oh, dang. Yeah,
Man, Sean, this run isn't even that good.
yeah, I heard you. That sucks.
I could do that.
What?
What?
What? Oh, that was weird. I opened up the live stream page, so I thought, Jacob, you said the same question twice because it was on a delay. That was weird. Okay.
Is it youtube.com/noobreaction?
Here, yeah, the noob reaction.
The noob, Chris.
Noob.
Might be.
Is this a live stream of the video too, or just audio?
Video
Oh,
too.
it's the video.
Ooh.
So get naked. Oh, it's on Twitch now?
No, it's on YouTube. I was streaming Fortnite on Twitch, playing with Levi a few minutes ago.
Oh.
We weren't doing so hot. All right. We'll get started. Let's aim for about an hour. I think that'll work well with our agenda.
Cool.
All right. Quiet on set. Hey everyone, welcome back to Hostile Discourse. Tonight on episode 29, we will be discussing the Winter Olympics, which are going on right now in Pyeongchang, South Korea. So Jacob is going to give his controversial stance on the Olympic Games in general, Summer and Winter Olympics. And it's actually a revisiting of our previous debate from a little over a year ago. So that will be fun. And then we'll be discussing the current medal standings for the Winter Olympics, as well as discussing our preference of Summer versus Winter Olympics and kind of the pros and cons of each. And last but not least, we're going to debate what the worst sport in the Winter Olympics is right now and which sport we would choose to replace it with. So I know we have some fun ones picked out for that debate. But before we get started, let me remind you that I write down all the time codes in the show notes, so you can just swipe down there and skip to the debate if you don't care about Jacob's stupid opinion on the Olympics, or you can listen to the whole thing. And first, I can introduce you to tonight's guests, starting with first-time guest Connor Brady from Houston, Texas. Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys?
And back again, a regular guest, Chris Fisher from New York City.
What's up, everybody?
And two of my co-hosts are back tonight. Jared had more important things to do, I guess. Starting with Jacob Hunter in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Hey, everybody.
And last but not least, Joe Kuiper from Oklahoma City.
Hello, everyone.
All right, let's start with the open season segment. So, Jacob, I can hand it off to you, and you can tell us why you think the Olympics are bad for humanity.
Sure. With the Winter Olympics, it's a very different tone, as I'm sure we've all picked up on just from watching and experiencing the coverage and everything. I feel like with the summer, it's much easier to criticize maybe the selection committee on choosing really poor places to have the Olympics, which leads to really poorly planned and rushed construction jobs of absolutely massive infrastructure. It's very dangerous for a lot of these places. Like Rio suffered several deaths of just construction workers in building those stadiums. And and then with the Winter Olympics in Russia, you saw all sorts of terrible conditions of the village and the facilities. And basically, last time we went through this, if I remember correctly, is that I made the case that as they stand now, the Olympics, they're not good. It's not the idea of an overall world congregation to participate in world championship sports, but it's just the fact that they're just executed so poorly. And with the Winter Olympics, what strikes me more now is, first of all, I don't know. This is probably the hot opinion. I get really uncomfortable when I watch skating or gymnastic events, just because of the stories I've heard through the years about how terrible it is to grow up as a kid with the goal set to become an Olympic gold skater or gymnast. It's just a terrible life you lead, riddled with brutal practice and abusive coaching, and that's a bit of an overarching statement. But at the end of the day, I guess my bottom line is I've never seen the evidence that the accomplishment of winning a gold amounts to more than the struggles that it went into to put on that event. Not in the way that you see a city like Houston find great value in winning the World Series. Obviously, that is an amazing feat for that team, especially in the time that it happened. The people of Houston all benefited in a huge way from their team winning the World Series. But when someone wins a gold medal, I've never seen an instance where that had such a profound positive impact that it seemed to offset what is just a massive presentation for kind of iffy sports.
So a big part of your argument there is the kind of how the country where the Olympics are being held, that they can't handle building the infrastructure. Has a terrible impact on their economy in the long run. Do you think that choosing a country for the Winter Olympics like South Korea is a good thing? Because their economy is very advanced. It doesn't seem like they had trouble designing the slopes needed for these Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
Do you think that Summer Olympics has a bigger impact because you have to create more stadiums?
Definitely for that, and also because so many of the events take place on facilities that have to already have been built in ski mountains. I think that's way less of a factor. Also, I feel like the Winter Olympics aren't as big of a deal. I might be wrong about that, but I get the impression you just don't need as much as far as infrastructure for the Winter Olympics. So yeah, I'd say those factors are not so much in play.
I'm intrigued by your argument because I kind of expected the infrastructure argument similar to what you brought up in the Summer Olympics, but I guess I'm surprised by the whole thinking that like training for this from a young age and not really having a net benefit in the long run as arguments against it. I would be curious to see, of all those people who have won medals, like 10 years later, ask them, do you like regret it? Like, do you regret all the training you put into it? I just haven't seen anything to suggest that like they would be unhappy with the training they put into it. But I agree. There's definitely instances where it goes too far. And one other thing I would say is that it kind of seems like the Olympics is the highest tier of competition, and like even national competitions, I feel like it pushes people to try harder at national competitions because they want to represent their country. So I don't know. I guess in my mind, the idea of a competition that makes people the best they can be is a good idea, but maybe there are alternatives.
Yeah, most of these competitions, like in the Olympics, like rifle shooting, will have world championships. Same with track and field, right? Someone tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
or
yeah,
at least like there's always the opportunity for like setting a new world record. That doesn't have to happen at the Olympics. So yeah, in that sense, I buy into the ceremony of the Olympics to an extent, and I love tradition, but I just don't know. It just brings up these institutions like gymnastics and like figure skating and these it brings into power like people like this Dr. Nassar, and that's just like a super terrible instance. But I feel like without the Olympics being what they were, kind of shaky and seemingly unstructured sports get a lot of money and power and influence. And I think that's bad in the long run. If you're talking about, for instance, if you're talking about soccer, that is a really organized sport that is well monitored for the most part. People pay attention a lot. People pay a lot of attention to it, at least, and then it gets to be on the global stage. With these smaller sports, they are never seen anywhere but the Olympics, and it just becomes too much to handle, I feel like. Again, that's just a lot of speculation, but it is a really profound vibe I get from those kinds of events.
If the Olympics didn't exist, though, like the smaller sports, like you mentioned, gymnastics, etc., they wouldn't have any stage to compete at that top level, and nobody, even less people would participate in them too because they don't have the Olympics. If gymnasts didn't have the Olympic stage to reach for, then it would suck for them. And a lot of other of the smaller sports, they don't have that stage.
Maybe. First of all, I just said in the Olympics as they exist now. So I guess a lot of this criticism has turned into like we should just be focusing on these other sports too in the 3 years in between, 4 years in between. But it's definitely not, I don't think the Olympics as an idea are bad. It's just the way they are right now. But even so, there are plenty of sports that are not in the Olympics that are doing just fine. So I don't think that's a big deal. And the athlete stories are still going to be told and lived out and have an impact on people that observe them, even if there aren't the Olympics. So I don't buy the idea that the Olympics are absolutely needed, because if people watch them, people are going to watch them outside of the Olympics. So I just don't buy that.
So I would kind of go along with David's point that it gives the lesser known sports an avenue to strive for, and more importantly, like I feel like the Olympics worldwide is one of the most like watched events over, not the Super Bowl or the World Cup or whatever, but there's so many people that will watch it, and especially like kids, that it gives, I don't know, I feel like it gives kids a chance to really aspire to something rather than just, like David mentioned, gymnastics. Like kids want to go to OU for gymnastics. OU sucks, Joe. Kids want to go to OU for gymnastics, but past college, then they don't really have anything to look forward to. But the Olympics, they watch that and kind of gives us some additional aspirations. I will also say, so I agree with the infrastructure. It's obviously, like we've seen it over and over again with Sochi and Rio, just things falling apart even like 2 years after the Olympics are over. But I think for, because you kind of said, I don't know if David phrased it like this or you did, Jacob, but you said it's like bad for kind of overall humanity, or just overall there's more bad than good. I feel like the Olympics are especially important for countries that maybe are going through like some civil unrest or whatever. Something's going on in a country. I feel like it's a good social way to get everybody like reorganized and kind of show a little bit of patriotic spirit, whether it's the U.S. or some other country. So I would say there's a lot of net benefits from just people being able to watch their own country go compete and bring people together regardless of what bad things may be happening in their country.
I love how you have figure skating on the TV behind you. It's really funny.
I got distracted by what I can only assume is Lindsey Vonn on the TV commercial.
Yeah, I think kids being able, like aspiring athletes being able to see what they can become is great. But that's a really small part of the people that are watching. And the Olympics are just so temporary, but the negative effects last for so long on a country that's not prepared. So I really think it gets outweighed after a while, after not that long.
So there's negative effects on that one country, but think about all the other, I don't know how many countries are in the Olympics, all those other countries that get net gains from getting to go cheer on their countrymen in whatever sport they're doing. So I just feel like maybe, yeah, that one city, Rio, Sochi, wherever, might get some lasting negative effects, but I feel like overall it might be a net gain.
Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but the movie Miracle is about the Winter Olympics, and therefore, if we didn't have the Winter Olympics, we would not have one of the greatest sports movies of all time.
I don't know if I have to say it again, but I'm not advocating for the abolition of the Olympics.
Jacob, do you realize you're arguing in favor of communism right now?
I see the error in my ways now. Now,
I agree with you. I think there are a lot of things that have come up, I think, with just technology and modern media that show there's a lot of perversity that go into the Olympics of kind of a bunch of rich countries playing these games and at the expense of these poor countries. There's also a lot of corruption in the IOC or in FIFA if we're talking World Cup. It's all kind of the same thing. The only place where I disagree with you is the kind of pressure of the Olympics causing these abusive coaches or doctors and horrible life schedules. I think you can find that those awful but anomalous situations in just about every sport. You had the Penn State situation in football. I don't think that was caused by the pressure of getting to the NFL or playing in the Super Bowl. I think that's more just kind of like a recency kind of jaded look, albeit understandable with kind of the horrible Michigan State stuff and you know all of the other things that have come out. But
I'll draw the distinction in that Olympics and figure skating are, I think, how am I going to say this? They have the greatest disparity of power between the coach and the athlete. So I think that's a particularly dangerous place for a young athlete. Whereas with like your Baylor situation, the victims weren't the athletes. Not to diminish that struggle, but I just meant to address the fact that the Olympics have the most prominent examples of sports where the athletes themselves could be victimized, and that's just like a really close encounter for many years between a student and a teacher under really high pressure. I just find that to be pretty volatile.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could apply to, sports in general and not just Olympic sports. But definitely interesting to talk about. And I think we should
Kind of a
probably move
downer.
on to
Yeah, that made me sad.
Yeah, I know. So deep. Well, I'll move on to our discussion, and we can kind of talk about the Olympics right now in Pyeongchang and the medals that each country has won. So right now, Germany has the most gold medals with 5. Netherlands has 4. The U.S. has 4. And total medals, Netherlands and Canada have 10. Norway has the most with 11. And this was updated as of Tuesday, the 13th at about 9 p.m. So the U.S. 4 golds includes who's a snowboarder who just won a few minutes ago?
Shaun White.
Shaun White.
Yes, that medal is in that list. A couple quick facts about these Winter Olympic Games. This is the 23rd Winter Games. There's been 28 Summer Games. This Winter Olympics features 102 events and 15 sports. And the new sports this year were big air snowboarding, mass start speed skating, mixed doubles curling, and mixed team alpine skiing. And a few nations, it was their first time competing as well. Ecuador, Eritrea, haven't even heard of them. Kosovo, Malaysia, Nigeria, and Singapore. Those are some obscure countries.
Joe, is Eritrea even a country?
Eritrea? Yeah, it is.
Kosovo.
Oh, I'm in
Stage.
med school student.
European?
I was watching mixed doubles curling yesterday. They had it on in the computer lab.
Oh.
And first of all, it had that
Northeastern Africa.
it had that Russian, Olympic athletes from Russia lady, the one that looks like Wonder Woman. But that mixed doubles was going on, and I really pondered the thought that maybe curling is the best sport for both sexes to play. Like the difference between man and woman in curling is so marginal that they can make like a really balanced team, more so than any sport. And so for that, I think it's really cool to watch. Plus, I just think it's one of I feel like people are always like they watch curling ironically. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh hey, it's curling, let's give this a shot. But I think it's a really cool sport.
What are you talking about? You're watching ironically too. You just think that one girl's hot.
No. I am just now adding to the fact that I'm watching it for pleasure of observing a genuine competition.
Observing a genuinely beautiful woman.
It is definitely
Wonder Woman was a bonus.
It's a unique thing to observe because none of us have ever done curling, I assume. Am I right?
I've sort of done it.
You slid something else down a nice thing?
Well, there's like, you guys know I grew up playing hockey, and sometimes they'd come on and do like curling practice after, and I'd try to let them like get me play around, and that's about the extent of my experience.
Yeah, but Jacob, that is a good point. How the disparity between skill between male and female is very small. That is kind of interesting because if you watch like male versus female half pipe snowboarding, it's insane. The level of tricks the guys are doing compared to the women, it's so much higher. It was crazy. I didn't know that a female snowboarder like doing 2 1080s was like a first,
Yeah,
that's what Chloe Kim won her gold on 2 back-to-back 1080s, and then a gold medal for Shaun White is 2 back-to-back 1440s followed by 2 back-to-back 1280s.
Was the
With like 10 times higher. Crazy.
Man, it's like the first double 1080 for a man in like the 80s or something. Like happened like 30 years ago.
I don't think was snowboarding even around in the 80s.
I watched a hilarious video the other day of like a news story when snowboarding was just becoming a thing, and it was like interviewing all these really jaded skiers talking about like finding them and getting them off the mountain and how they're like they're so rambunctious and they're no good for the mountain.
Yeah,
that was when their snowboarder. What did you say, Chris?
I was just saying, I mean, snowboarding's pretty new, and like it's crazy how quickly the athleticism and the level of difficulty has developed. Because and snowboarding and skateboarding are kind of very closely correlated in how the difficulty of tricks progress. But it wasn't that long ago, and I remember it when I was a kid that Tony Hawk made like groundbreaking X Games or sports news because he landed the first 900 in competition. Mm-hmm. And like that's a joke now, but that was like that was only like 10 or 15 years ago. And now like if you think snowboarding is crazy, like skiers in the pipe and slope style can get even more rotation than snowboarders can. They're down like 1860s and shit like that.
Hmm.
I don't know how the judges keep count.
That
get like replay. I guess you have an eye for it, but
I don't know how they see like they rattle off the tricks like right after they land them and before they do the next one. I don't know how they keep track of. And then they're also throwing in like whatever the cab, double cork, whatever. I don't know how they see it so quick.
Maybe commentators are using like a live delay of a few seconds, in order to sound more immediate. I don't know.
I think they've got a trained eye for it. It's just so hard to follow from someone who only watches, every now and then.
I suspect that they have. You go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was just saying, I always thought that they submitted, like, I'm going to do these tricks.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I always thought it worked, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely right.
Genius.
Makes me wonder, like, snowboarding has become so big so fast, and it's still so new. It kind of makes me wonder about like the place of a sport in the Olympics, which will lead to our debate, I guess. But like, I wonder what it was like when they first added it. It must have been really controversial for some people, right? Like, if even now we can say that snowboarding is relatively new, to add it to like the oldest sporting competition series ever must have been a big deal. Oh, well, maybe
I don't know when it was introduced.
Yeah.
To the Olympics.
Chris, I think you'd be the closest one to speak to that.
Oh, I don't know. I think pretty much it seems like every Olympics they remove one or two sports and they add one or two sports, and it's usually pretty obscure, but like those who are involved, there always seems to be a decent level of contention regardless of the sport.
1998. This is the 20-year anniversary of snowboarding.
Hey.
Wow.
In Nagano, Japan.
Huh. I did want to ask you guys if you prefer watching summer or winter Olympics, and if you have a preference, why?
He is farting so bad right now. It's just like it's so awful.
I can go first. I think I prefer the Winter Olympics, to be honest. I just love, like, I've always been a person who loves snow, though, so maybe that plays into it. But like, I love the snowy gear, snowy outfits, the pristine white. So I always, and the mountains. It's way better scenery to me. Maybe that's why I like it. But like the Summer Olympics sometimes just seems like, all right, I'm gonna watch a swimming event, and now I'm gonna watch a running event, and then back to swimming, and then back to running. And like, I feel like those are kind of the only ones I really end up watching. So I don't know. I love the bobsled in the winter.
I'll follow that up. I think I'm kind of the same way as Joe. Like I grew up snowboarding and always like going to the mountains and stuff. So I definitely like the scenery and stuff more. But I will say I think Summer Olympics has its place as well, just because it's the kind of original idea of, you know, Greek Olympic sports. I think that's maybe the saving grace for me of watching the Summer Olympics is since the tradition goes back so far. That's kind of a cool part for me.
But the tradition started with them competing in the nude, so we've broken away from that tradition a bit.
Bring it back.
I'm torn on this one. Oh, sorry. Do you want to go ahead?
No.
So I'm torn. I kind of feel the same way. Joe, you were kind of talking about it. My heart wants to say the Winter Olympics because they just come across as so magical, and like especially if snow is falling, or you kind of think of like the I don't know, the like in and out scene shots of Miracle where there's like the snowy Olympic villages, and it's just so pretty. But I just sit down and watch the Winter Olympics, and I have a good time. But like I feel like more than half the sports I sit down and I just get kind of bored because I get lost, and I just think there's a lot of sports that are hard to relate to in the Winter Olympics. And the Summer Olympics, like it's a lot. It's probably a little more. I don't know. There's I guess less unique sports across the board, fewer unique sports. But I think just relatability as a viewer makes it more entertaining, and being able to know what it looks like to run faster than someone, or like throw something farther, or swim faster. Plus, there's just more common sports like volleyball and basketball and whatnot. It just makes it. I don't know. I like them both a lot. I think hockey is the best Olympic sport all around. I'll say that.
Yeah. I'll especially second Joe's sentiment about the gear. I always look forward to the opening ceremony outfits, like the Ralph Lauren stuff. I don't think this is lame at all. And this year, did y'all see the gloves they were wearing?
Yes.
They were so cool.
They're like the gloves in Dumb and Dumber, the little tabs.
They are like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the winter clothes look so cool, and I think Chris is right in hockey being the best Olympic sport. But like volleyball is also amazing, and I think Chris really nailed it, just like about being able to relate to the sports with a lot of these winter ones. Like you can't understand how the scoring works, and no one ever really explains it to you. But if you're watching volleyball, you know when someone scores. Same with hockey, and
it's like if you're watching luge and someone sets a world record, and then you watch someone else that comes up and looks like they did the exact same thing, and they get like 8th place.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I would say too, like the Winter Olympics is definitely the more subjective of the two. Like half of the events are like graded by a judge, like figure skating, snowboarding, like skiing, everything's like, a judge, versus the Summer Olympics is like timed, you know. So. Did
you listen to that or read the NPR article that TK sent in the group chat today?
I did not.
They listed the things that people are judged on in the in figure skating, and I want to read them because they blew my mind, and really I thought there was way more integrity in this sport than there actually is. I'm just going to list a few. This is to cite my sources. This is an interview on All Things Considered. They said physical, emotional, and intellectual involvement, carriage, style and individual personality, clarity of movement, variety and contrast, and lastly, projection, which as the skating federation is defined by radiating energy resulting in an invisible. Let me repeat that. Resulting in an invisible connection with the audience.
What the heck?
That is what you were judged on in figure skating.
Have you guys seen I,
Wow.
Tonya?
No.
That's like, I mean, it's kind of a lesser plot, but that's I, Tonya, or I'm not I, Tonya. Tanya Harding got, she always got so pissed because she was just far and away the best skater and could do the most athletic and impressive moves, but they would always knock her because she looked like trailer trash pretty much.
Well, I think I'm going to change my answer for the debate of which sport I want to remove.
On the fly. Do it. It'll be the first time ever.
No, I'm not actually going to do that because I have to have preparation. But I think we should start the debate. So let's get into it. The debate question is, what is the worst sport in this year's Winter Olympics, and what is the best replacement sport for it? Joe will be the judge, and the rest of us will be arguing for our individual answers. So, Joe, I can hand it off to you from here, and you can dictate the order of things.
Okay. Yeah, so this obviously is sort of a two-parter, so it makes it a little more challenging, but I will try my best to judge both equally so that, you know, if you maybe lack in one but make up for it with the replacement, I will grant that more. And again, it's based on the arguments. So let's get down to it. Let's do opening statements. I'll go left to right on my screen. So first person is actually Chris.
Okay, sorry I missed. Are we doing what we would remove or both?
I thought it was both.
Both.
Same time?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is this like an opening 20-second statement?
Yeah, that's like 30 seconds.
Okay. So I'm going to remove bobsled for reasons I will address later. I don't know. Is it bobsled or bobsleigh?
Sleigh.
Bobsleigh.
Yeah.
I'm going to remove bobsleigh for reasons I will address later. And played around with a few ideas of something new or something that's been proven and tested, and something a little ridiculous. I propose for addition to the 2026 Winter Olympic Games, professional or semi-professional pond skimming,
Okay.
as featured in Spring Break in mini skiing mountains.
All right, when we get back to you, you're going to have to elaborate because I don't really know what that is. But
Well, I had to condense two things into 30 seconds.
I don't know. That's yeah. I know. I'm just saying.
That's featured on many Jerry of the Day Instagram posts.
Yes.
All right. Next up, Connor.
All right, so I chose mine just based on kind of popularity of viewing for what's worst and what should be removed. So Nordic combined, which I guess that's just the name of it, is basically two other Olympic sports combined into one. So it's big air ski jump and cross country skiing. I think the two of them separately are enough. Like they're both really interesting sports, but they're enough on their own. And you don't need to combine them. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool to see an athlete do both of them and excel at both of them. But then also, secondly, it's only a men's event as of right now. So I think
Despicable.
getting we're in 2018, getting a sport that both men and women can share in, probably preferable. To replace Nordic combined, I also, with Chris, tried to think of some kind of time-tested, also accessible to both genders, which it's really not part of my argument, but I guess it kind of plays into it, is backcountry skiing. And as Chris, I will also define that later.
All right. Now we move to Jacob.
I move to remove the biathlon. This is similar to, I took a similar approach to what Brady or Connor did, and the fact that I think this is just a senseless combination of two sports. But this is even a wider gap between cross country and ski jumping. This is cross country skiing and rifle shooting. It's just a real hodgepodge, and the athletes would be better served if they did one, the other, or both, if they're really that good. I moved to add an event that was in the it was in the 1924 Olympics, and maybe the 1920 Olympics as well, called alpinism. And it's actually not an event in the Olympics. It's medals awarded to people based on feats of like Arctic mountaineering that happened in the year before. So there's no event during the actual Olympics, but I think that they are rewarding some of the greatest feats of physical human accomplishment, which is the whole idea behind sports. And the people that pull off the stuff that these people did to get these gold medals need way more recognition.
All right. And then we go to David.
Yep. So I would get rid of skeleton based on the name alone.
And the picture, I was just looking at that. It's the scariest little stick figure icon of all of the sports.
No, not based on the name alone, but I can get into why it's so stupid and repetitive considering some of the other sports in these Olympic Games. And I would replace it with igloo. More specifically, igloo building. And this would be very entertaining, trust me. And I can explain my ideas on how to make this a competition and why it would be so fun in my next statements.
Okay. Now we'll move on to some arguments. I was thinking that maybe the best way to do this would be to have, first we'll deal with each of you kind of saying why either yours doesn't belong or someone else's does belong. So targeting the first half, if you will. And then later we can move to arguing why the one that you're trying to replace it isn't good or why yours is good. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I should clarify what skeleton is just in case people don't know. It's basically luge, only the person is laying on their belly instead of on their back. So
okay.
And head first, not feet first.
Chris, can you explain pond skimming
yes.
for us as well?
Pond skimming, sure. So there's not really a fixed format. That's part of the beauty of the quote-unquote sport, because the general idea is a pond at the bottom of a hill, and people on skis and snowboarders now, in spring break, they usually wear like some sort of ridiculous costume or no clothes at all, but they go down as fast as they can and try to skim as far across the water as possible. I see a few different branches of opportunity to kind of mix up the sport. Maybe you could do some sort of aerial maneuver or trick and land on the water. But yeah, mostly it's basically going off a jump onto water and going as far as you can. There's always crazy wipeouts, and some people make it far.
Okay. All right. Then we'll open the floor, and yeah, again, kind of for now, we'll focus on why the events that you guys picked, why you think the other events should be in it, and why you think yours shouldn't.
So I'll start it off. I'll address Jacob's pick first. Was it biathlon, right?
Yeah.
So I think, kind of going back to the tradition of the Olympics, I think biathlon should be in the Olympics because it goes to sort of competing in a real life scenario where people, out living in Russia or Norway or Alaska, northern or southern countries, they're going around cross country skiing to go out and find food. And then once they find it, they have to shoot it and, you know, be really precise. So it's a good mix of being really well conditioned, but then at the same time having the ability to calm your breath down and make a shot. So I think the premise of it kind of goes back to a cool history. So that I would keep it for those reasons.
Yeah, geez, Jacob, have you ever seen a James Bond movie? God.
Seriously. I'd love to piggyback on you there, Connor. So in James Bond, For Your Eyes Only, Bond joins a biathlon match and wins spur of the moment. And it's one of the coolest scenes in a Bond movie. It's also one of the coolest sports in the summer or winter Olympics. We talked about this on a year ago on the last Olympics episode, how we all thought biathlon was so cool. I mean, I totally agree with Connor. It's like very useful for actually hunting purposes in Russia. And it's just really cool. And it's also entertaining and impressive to shoot something after you're, you know, cross country skiing your heart out. It would be super hard to calm down your heart rate and get that shot off. I think it's really cool and way cooler than all these other sports we chose to remove.
Yeah. If I said that biathlon was the coolest sport back then, I've changed my mind so hard since then. Chris, were you gonna tack on before I unleashed on you guys?
No, go ahead.
Okay. History is not a good reason for a sport to be in the Olympics, because they're so far removed from their historic place. You're running on a track. You're not running in a field to escape from a field of bison or whatever Aboriginal people were originally running for. And you're not skiing through an actual cross-country terrain and actually shooting animals. It's so far removed from that. The history alone, it's just a sentiment, and it doesn't speak at all to what a sport should actually be about. It should be about exhibiting something really special in a skill. And the problem is, like, look, standalone, what they do is crazy, and mainly for the cross-country skiing part. But if we already have events for cross-country skiing, and we already have events for rifle shooting, I think it's way better for the Olympics that we free up a spot. This is really what this is about. We need to free up a spot because there is a really important event that needs to be in there, but we're not letting in there because there's a half and half hodgepodge combination of two events that already are in the Olympics taking that slot. We can watch actually the best exhibition of cross-country skiing and actually the best exhibition of rifle shooting and let that be it, and really acknowledge what some winter athletes that need the attention.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to quickly address mine because I feel like it's strong enough that I'm not going to have to address anyone else's. Bobsled is a fucking joke. Like, like luge and skeleton are already glorified sledding, which is cool, and it takes like some coordination and core strength and whatever. There are literally going to be gold medalist Olympians who all they did was run for 3 seconds and sit in a sled. Like, they don't even drive. They don't even like sit in the back and control the tail. There are two people that will be Olympic gold medalists that just run for 3 seconds and sit in a car. And that's all they do.
Don't they have the strings? The person in the back, don't they have little steering strings?
Oh, okay. So maybe they touch some strings. I don't even know. Like, that's a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke.
Chris, haven't you played Haven't you played Mario Party 2? The bobsleigh minigame is actually kind of difficult.
I'm sure it's difficult for the person driving, who's the guy in the front. 1/4 of the team, and there are just 2 guys, really 3 guys that just sit there. Like, maybe they have to shift their body weight. I do that like when I'm trying to get comfortable watching TV. It's a joke. There is one downside to taking it out, and that it's the Jamaican bobsled team would have never existed, and people like Drake Norman would not be able to achieve the level of happiness that he has achieved in his life. Other than that, it's like any athleticism is displayed tenfold in the same sport for luge and skeleton, but like bobsled's a joke. It's got like if there's a sport to go, that's what you go.
So I'll address that just by saying I think if we're going to take that argument about bobsled being kind of ridiculous as far as granting medals to people that don't deserve them, at the same token, David's argument about skeleton, like that one guy, I guess he is in control of his own sled, but he is also just kind of running and sitting on a sled, and hopefully he makes the right turns. I don't know. I think that's kind of tough to split the two. I think bobsled is a little cooler because it's a bit of more teamwork. They have to all get in a sled or sleigh, whatever, at the same time.
They have to really coordinate their sitting.
Sure. Whereas the other guy just has to land on his cart. I will say I'll go back to my option of the Nordic combo. It's different than the biathlon because it's combining two different sports, which yes, they're both in the Olympics, one summer and one winter, but it's combining them into two sports, which I think almost makes it a different sport, because when you're shooting in the Olympics by itself, your heart isn't racing. You probably are as calm and as still as you'll ever be. And when you're cross country skiing in the Winter Olympics, you just go all out and you don't have to worry about calming down later. So I think it's a different sport almost than just combining two sports. Whereas big air and cross country is literally like two sports. They do them at two separate times and then combine the scores. So I think the Nordic combination is literally two sports put together that people already do. So.
I agree. Connor mentioned bobsleigh being slightly cooler than luge or skeleton, which I think is true. And skeleton, the reason I picked that as worse than luge is because luge is slightly faster than skeleton. They lay on their backs and they can move a little bit faster. Their sled is a little bit lighter, so they're faster. Skeleton is just the belly downhill facing version of luge, and it's super lame. The only thing that makes it exciting is the possibility of somebody totally wiping out, so nothing worth it there. I'm going to get into the igloo building sport a little bit. So all of us love the Primitive Technology YouTube channel. We love seeing people build, as we've mentioned on recent episodes. We love seeing people build shelters that can shield them from the elements, because it's hard to do that. And very few people have the skills to create shelters like this. And it's even more impressive for the Winter Olympics because Eskimos have to create igloos and sub-freezing temperatures in order to stay out of the elements. And I think that igloo building would just be so entertaining. There'd be a time period, and they'd have the freedom to be creative. And once again, this would be kind of subjective judging, much like a lot of the other winter sports. But I think building a efficient and creative igloo would be an awesome competition to watch. And just imagine the entertaining commentary on igloo building, like experts, and it would be so fun to watch some igloo builders from across the world. And
Okay.
good luck to like the African countries practicing building igloos.
Okay, speaking of ill-equipped countries, I was just now reading through a Wikipedia article. Can I share a crazy anecdote about the Jamaican bobsleigh team?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Here it is. Having qualified for the 2014 Sochi Olympics, but lacking funding, first of all, that's crazy. The cryptocurrency Dogecoin community raised on the team's behalf $30,000 of the approximately $40,000 required within 2 days. some randos on the internet who made a cryptocurrency after a meme sent the Jamaican bobsleigh team to the 2014 Olympics.
That's awesome.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So, Chris, why do you think that pond skimming would be a good Olympic sport? How would they even judge it? Is it based on distance?
Yeah, sure. Like, all right, if we're being realistic in this debate, there's only 2 actual sport proposals here. Jacob's proposing not having a sport in the Olympics, and David is proposing like an arts and crafts competition. And mine is kind of ridiculous. I get it. I tried to take like a slightly comedic angle, but you could legitimately make a sport out of this that is on par of levels of respectability as other sports, and I would say above par on sports like bobsled, where you just sit in a cart. Like you just go down and you skim across the water as far as you can. It's like ski jumping, but on water. Or if you wanted to like do a judge-based thing, then you can like throw some tricks down and you have to land on the water. I think Connor's sport would be cool too. I think the only thing that makes mine a better proposal is it's just a lot easier to install. You can set up big grandstands around it. It would be super easy to film and watch. Not that it would be impossible to do, but it'd be a lot harder to transport people to a safe area to watch backcountry skiing. It'd be harder to get the kind of optics for the video and whatnot. Pond skimming, very simple implementation, lots of fun for the viewers, plenty of variety of competition. Oh,
it would have some amazing slow motion shots going to commercial breaks.
Yeah, and Chris, the wipeouts are hilarious if you've ever seen them.
Chris, side tangent: have you ever been a part of pond skimming during your spring break days?
No, I've only watched.
Okay, I could picture you doing that, but I'm kind of bummed you haven't.
Is pond skimming dangerous at all?
No. Like
you could hit the side of the pond.
Yeah, I mean you could like hurt yourself a little bit, but like people have died doing skeleton, and I don't think you're gonna die pond skimming unless like someone can't swim.
Fair. So I'm gonna go ahead and clarify, I guess, on mine. I think most people know backcountry skiing is just skiing off of, you're not on a resort. You're out in the middle of the woods skiing uncharted territory. When I thought of it, my initial idea was to almost do not a two-pronged event, but typical backcountry skiing. You obviously don't have a lift, or if you have the resources, you have a helicopter or a snowmobile. But my idea was to have it two-pronged to where the people kind of hike up, because that's like the typical backcountry thing. So they're called skins, but you basically put a sticky mat under your skis or snowboard. You hike up to the top of the mountain and then you ski down. So that was my idea, is to do kind of a dual format. Like you have to have the conditioning to get up the mountain, but then at the same time you have to be good and like have the style to get down and get points, which is kind of intense. Like Chris said, like it'd be hard to set up, and a lot of things would go into it. But I just think it's such a unique thing to see someone do. Is they're not on a man-made jump or anything. So I think it would really show an athlete's skill by seeing that they're very well conditioned, but then they can also do, a backflip off of a tree or whatever they're going to find in whatever backcountry format. So I think it'd be a cool sport to add.
Bonus points if you outrun an avalanche.
Avalanche would probably be a man-made, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. It'd be a curtailed aspect of it. I'm sure they'd blast down the avalanches first.
Yeah, last person to run has an advantage, considering they don't have to worry about an avalanche if 5 people went in the same area before them.
Sure.
Oh, that's not always true.
Ooh.
I'll show you a video. There's a funny video that they used to show in avalanche training where like 4 guys go down doing these cool turns, and then this last guy goes and it just turns into an avalanche. It was a small one. It wasn't fatal or anything. I'm not that insensitive. I'm gonna try to find it.
All right. Anyone else have any jabs they'd like to make?
I will also go back to. I'll go back to David's igloo craftsmanship building. I think the Olympics is awesome because it brings together a lot of different countries, and like I think David himself pointed out, like good luck to Africa or really any country that's not the frigid north or the frigid south. Like there's literally going to be like
argument about any winter sport like skiing. So
well, sure, but skiing is way more easily accessible than building an igloo. Like you can go to, if you live in Kansas, you can go to Colorado, or if you live in Italy, well, I guess there's mountains in Italy. If you live in Spain, you can go to Switzerland. I don't know.
It's a huge strength for pond skimming. There's ponds in every country.
Yeah, doing igloo building, it'd be like Germany, Norway, and U.S. every year. Canada, sure, Russia. But it'd be like 5 countries that win every single time, and everybody else would think it's ridiculous.
I think you're overestimating a little bit the effort it would take to create some fake snow to mold into cubes and make an igloo. Like it would take less snow to make a couple igloos in an indoor temperature regulated facility than it would to create fake snow to make a ski slope. So I don't think it would be that big of a hurdle for countries, even in warmer climates. And I think that the entertainment value and just like the differentness, the uniqueness factor is what would make it so cool. And I think people would actually watch. Curling is fun to watch because it's different, and we'd never get to see sports like that on a daily basis. And igloo would be something similar.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm almost sold on the idea, but I think that would be some of the worst set of rules as far as judging an igloo. My first idea was to you set a candle inside every igloo, and whichever candle stays lit the longest, that they get the gold medal. But I think you can't have a good sport and still maintain the creativity aspect that you originally campaigned on, David, because if you're talking about building something, I can't even think of an equivalent, but you're just going to have to put so many restrictions on size, dimensions, and it's going to be like a I don't know. The only way I can see it working as a good sport, as a true sport, is where a lot of people are building a lot of the same igloo over and over again. But maybe I'm not creative. I think I am, though. So.
Why don't each of you actually kind of give me like a 30-second rundown on how your event would be judged? Because I think all of you kind of provided a new sort of thing that there's not really criteria for. So, Chris, why don't you start?
Sure. Pond skimming distance. Who can go down the mountain and skim the furthest? That's how you win, measured with lasers and the greatest technology known to mankind. And then there's pond skimming extreme. This will consist of a panel of 5 judges where it will be a combination of the best trick thrown and the landing and the style. That's it.
All right. Connor?
So, like I said, backcountry skiing in my mind would be a 2-pronged sport. So the skinning up, if you will, and the backcountry skiing actually down the mountain. So 50% of the points awarded would be from the time it takes you to get up the mountain, and then the other 50% kind of similar to other skiing and snowboarding events, to where you do backflips and see how cool you can make it to get down the side of the hill.
Jacob?
When alpinism was originally in the Olympics, there was something called the International Climbing and Mountaineering Federation that had a private committee that would decide on these matters to my research, there was never really a close competition. So this is a bit more of a ceremonial sport, or at least a ceremonial medal, because mountaineers never really compete against each other. But you really could just factor in you just build a model, right, of the amount of distance they climbed and the conditions that it happened in and the handicaps they received in guides or whatever, and factor it all into a score. It wouldn't be that hard at all.
How riveting.
And David?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so igloo would be judged. An igloo is created to keep people out of the elements, to keep heat in, and to keep the cold out. So I think that using some environmental measurement tools, you can measure the heat of inside the igloo over a certain period of time to make sure the heat stays in there. So that's kind of like the more scientific measurement of the igloo structure. And then I think as well, the aesthetic of the igloo and the creativity and design could definitely be a factor as well. And I mean, obviously in many of these winter sports, figure skating mostly, but snowboarding and everything else, like it's subjective judging in a lot of these cases. And so I think that some subjective judging on the aesthetic and beauty and things like that could be a big factor in judging also.
Okay. All right. Now why don't you each go down and we'll do the final statement so we can wrap this up. So we'll go in inverse order of how we originally did it. So final statements, try and keep them under a minute. We'll start with David again.
Yep. So getting rid of skeleton, luge is better. Bobsleigh is even better. It's just pointless. And I think making a room for a newer sport like igloo would be the best move. Igloo, like I just stated, I think would be really entertaining for a lot of different people. I mean, it would be easy to understand as well. Kind of like curling is pretty simple to watch. Igloo would be simple, especially if the criteria were defined as far as the environmental factors. And yeah, I just think it'd be really fun sport, and I would definitely watch it.
All right, Jacob?
Right. So, look, the point of sports is to get people to do incredible new feats of exertion with their bodies. And there's really no greater example than mountaineering. The greatest accomplishments of the human body have been climbing. And the fact that we have some really sorry events in the Winter Olympics is something we can so easily change by removing the worst sport, and that's the biathlon, a senseless combination of two sports, as I've already explained. It might have had some touching resemblance to kind of an archaic hunting form, but that's so far removed now. You just have to look at it as an actual sport and then realize that we're better off having the skiers focus on skiing and the shooters focus on shooting. And if they can meet in the middle, then they should probably be doing both events. What we need is a global stage where we can recognize some of the greatest athletes in the world, and those are the ones that are climbing the highest peaks and braving the elements in ways that no one else in the Olympics, in the Winter Olympics, is doing. And I think it really is even the truest sense of the Winter Olympics. And yet, alpinism does not have the slot on the sport roster. So I vote for that little exchange based on the fact that, yes, really the spirit of the Winter Olympics can truly be fulfilled.
Okay. Connor?
All right. So Nordic combination, I think it should be removed. It's two completely separate sports that are both in the Winter Olympics. So you get if you're really a big fan of big air skiing or cross country, it's not like it's going away. You still get to see it in the same 3-week span of the Olympics. So I think it's such an easy one to get rid of without upsetting anybody that really likes those two sports, but also adding value whichever, however the IOC or the hostile discourse panel seems fit.
That's
and
right.
then to add the backcountry skiing, I think like a lot of Winter Olympic sports, like we've discussed, are about seeing sports that you don't typically see day to day, curling, luge, whatever it is. Whereas Summer Olympics is a little more common, but backcountry skiing is very unique. It's crazy to see people creating the opportunity to do a backflip or double backflip or whatever off of a tree or a rock or whatever, rather than a man-made half pipe that they know exactly when they're going to land and how it's going to feel to take off. And then at the same token, the skinning up would kind of go back to how the sport was originally before we had ski lifts and helicopters and whatever else. So I think it'd be a true testament to athletic ability for a winter athlete.
All right, and Chris?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I would remove bobsled because I think it's a fucking joke that people are just sitting out in a car and get an Olympic medal. And there's also already 4 variations of going down a track in some sort of sled. Like, we can lose one of them. I would add pond skimming because as far as an Olympic sport to add, it's unique, yet it is objectively a competition in multiple varieties. It would be great TV. It would be very watchable. It would be fresh, and it would be easy to set up the course.
All right. Well, thank you for all your wonderful arguments.
You're so welcome,
Shout
Joe.
out to the people in the YouTube chat right now. I'll give you a second to think about who gave the best debate, Joe. Paige and Kyle and William. Thanks for viewing on the live chat and for participating. I'll read some of your funny comments after Joe makes his decision. I don't want to sway any of his thoughts.
I mean, I've had that up, so I kind of read them already.
Oh, okay.
I actually do think I know the winners, and I think I always have known. No. No, it did vary quite a bit as you guys went through, and what I originally thought was not what I now think. 4th place, and it always sucks to give this, and I know you probably won't agree, but I'm going to have to give it to David.
Ooh!
The idea of the igloo building, I wasn't sold on as an Olympic sport, and I think that people brought up some good reasons why. Some funny like arts and crafts and other more serious.
You're just trying to overcompensate because that was originally your idea, so you don't want to be biased.
It was also, in hindsight, a very bad idea. No, but I do think there's arguments against it. 3rd place goes to Jacob.
Oh.
Again, I mean, I really do like the idea of alpinism, but
I know.
The idea of like rewarding something that happened outside the Olympics with a gold medal, like it's kind of like giving a Nobel Prize, but I don't know. I guess I wasn't sold on it.
The majority of the work always happens outside of the Olympics.
That's
Dang it,
true.
I should have said that earlier.
And then we get to the main 2. So I'll say the winner first, but then I'll explain why the person who got second. So between our 2 guests, actually, the winner is going to be Chris.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh, I broke my 2nd place streak.
And I'm not even on the board. Come on, dude.
You're on the board. You beat me.
You got
Connor,
silver.
you got second.
Well, the overall hostile discourse board.
That's true.
That's true. But many
I'll be
people
back.
No, I really did like your argument, but the drawback I had was that you were arguing that Nordic is 2 different events and they'd be better separate, but your idea for the cross-country skiing is kind of the same, where like you would cross-country ski up and then ski back down,
No,
which
it's
are already
backcountry skiing. It's not cross country skiing.
well. Okay, that's fair. And
Alright.
I did like the idea, but I don't know. I guess to me it was kind of like replacing something with something very similar.
So if I kept it as simply backcountry skiing down an uncharted terrain, would that have helped?
Possibly.
With the helicopter
Damn.
drop.
But
All right, well, 4
honestly,
years from now.
honestly,
Joe already made up his mind. Stop.
yeah, the thing I didn't hear too much complaint about was the pond skimming. And honestly, it would be quite implementable as a event, and definitely it would have the entertainment factor. I mean, Jacob yourself said it would make some beautiful cut shots.
I'm sold on this idea.
I am too. It sounds pretty legit. And I mean, David and Chris both kind of brought up how bobsled and skeleton are just repeats of the luge. So anyway, Chris wins. I apologize if I've offended, but such
How
as
dare
it
you.
is.
I'm honored.
Wait.
Thank you.
Thank you for judging, Joe, and congratulations, Chris.
Thank you. It's been a long drought.
Chris, were you Paige in the chat?
Yeah.
Oh my! I thought that was actually Paige. That's so funny.
Well, what's she saying?
Oh man!
I said it's not Paige up at the.
Wow. Yeah, Kyle is saying, man, that was really confusing. Now that I know that, okay. Because Chris said, "Hi, Kyle. Do you like frogs?" Kyle said no. Chris said why. Kyle said ribbon.
That's like
these are the kinds of conversations you can look forward to when you join the live chat on YouTube, everybody.
Elevators and Roblox just said shoot at chat. I don't know
what a name. All right. Well, congrats again, Chris. And thank you for coming on, Connor.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Hope to
we will be back in 2 weeks, like always. The Winter Olympics will be done by then. I hope you guys can enjoy them a little more after this discussion. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. That would really help out the show if you enjoyed this episode. And also follow us on social media. And we love when you interact and comment on our posts and give us ideas for debates. And we'll give you a shout out, or even maybe have you on the show if you give us a debate idea that we would use. So yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. So thanks for watching. We appreciate you listeners and viewers, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 All right, stop those recordings carefully. Save them. You can save it your first name, episode 29, if you would like.
Can we text these?
Email works.
Oh, okay.
Or if the file's too big, like Google Drive or Dropbox works too.
Kyle says, I went on. I have no debate ideas.
Elevators and Roblox. Thanks for coming in the chat. He said, show to chat, show it, show it. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, you can see the chat right above him.
No way. That Shaun White's was America's 100th Winter Olympic gold.
Wow.
Wow, how
Of course
fitting.
it was.
Woohoo!
So Germany's only been in the Olympics for 11 years, and they have almost as many medals as we do.
Oh my goodness, I did not know that.
How have
And
they
we've
only
been-
been in the Olympics for 11 years?
Well, I mean, like 11 consecutive Olympics, I guess. That should be
Oh, that's
Oh.
way more.
44 years. Because more than that ago, they were East and West Germany. But we have, only slightly more, and we've been in 22.
Well, fuck them
Chris.
anyway.
Chris, I need a screenshot of you for the thumbnail. So will you angle your camera down a little more so I can see them nips?
Oh, my nibs on it. All right, let me at least get this Valentine.
Here, let me see your. Oh my god. Okay, that's better. Here, let's move it over to your right a little more. Yeah, right there. Perfect.
Chris, does A Basin ever have like a pond skimming event?
I don't know about A Basin. The one I always went to is at Vale.
No. Can like anybody just like sign up for it, or?
I also don't know that. It did seem like you couldn't just. I never really paid attention to that part. It didn't really seem like you could just walk up and do it. Like it was a pretty They had like a bunch of big sponsors and stuff. It was always like sponsored by Red Bull and like Coors Light and everything. But I don't know, like, and the people's costumes are always insane.
Yeah.
I'll find like a video of it and send it to you guys in the text.
All right, I gotta go, guys.
Yeah, me too.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jacob and Connor. Connor, did you figure out how to send it?
It's on my work phone. I'll send it to you when I get back in my apartment.
Did you love it, Connor?
Yes, it was great. I'm glad I participated in an episode that I could actually contribute to.
Yeah.
That's what, like, half of these when I listen to them, I'm like, man, this is really funny, but I would literally not have anything to say.
Like Star Wars episodes.
Yes. Yeah. The
elevators and Roblox says don't go. Whoever that is.
Who is this person?
Probably TK or something.
Yeah.
I will say the home invasion episode was pretty interesting. Who was that guy? One of your buddies from high school?
He's Caleb Winter, who was in my wedding. It's his brother-in-law.
Oh, shit. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, after that episode, I listened to it on the way to work. And I didn't go buy a gun, but I'm much more likely to go get my handgun now.
Yeah, I know. It's scary.
I got my lightsaber.
I'm just less likely to ever answer my door, late at night. So.
David, you think you might come up skiing in February or March or not?
I'm not sure. I can text you about it.
All right. Cool. Well, Chris and Joe, you guys can come skiing too.
I would love to.
I would too.
But
I'll be studying.
all right.
All right, I'm gonna end the broadcast. Bye, YouTube audience.